The city of Tulsa has agreed to pay a whopping $26 million to a man who was wrongfully convicted of rape and spent decades in prison because of it. News Channel 8's Burt Mumolo reports on the shocking circumstances that led to this massive settlement. Burt.
A devastating portrait of injustice. That's how Henry Jamerson's lawyer describes his case. The story of a man who was told time and again that the crucial evidence in his case, which could prove his innocence, no longer existed, only to find out it actually did.
I don't be playing around with my freedom.
When we interviewed him back in April, Henry Jamerson had just filed an 89-page lawsuit in federal court after spending decades behind bars following a wrongful conviction in the 1991 rape of a 16-year-old.
All of it is shocking.
Attorney Dan Smolin is Jamerson's lawyer, who meticulously laid out the tangled web of jaw-dropping allegations of wrongdoing by the police department, the DA's office, and the city, even the current police chief.
I think he definitely knew.
Knew, he says, that authorities had the DNA evidence from Jamerson's case, even though time and again when Jamerson asked to have it tested, he was told it no longer existed. Quote, "We decline your request to inspect the Tulsa Police Department laboratory and/or property room to search for a piece of evidence that we are certain we have destroyed."
They had maintained that it had been looked for, they had looked at everywhere possible, that it couldn't be found, that they were certain that it didn't exist anymore.
The DA's office, he says, jumped on the bandwagon. There is no reason to doubt the city of Tulsa's diligence in failing to locate petitioner's evidence.
That's statements that they made to a court in the Tulsa County Courthouse during evidentiary hearings.
And city legal, no better, he says.
It's been destroyed. The city on letterhead wrote from the legal department, we're not going to go look for something that we're certain has been destroyed.
But lo and behold, after a 7-year legal battle, Smolin got a court order to search the property room himself. And within just a few hours...
It was surreal. It was surreal that we had found it. It was surreal that we had been lied to for so long about the existence of it. It was shocking that Henry had been asking for this and denied the opportunity over decades to have had an opportunity to get out of prison for a crime that he had nothing to do with.
It's frustrating, man. You know, especially you go to prison for a crime you didn't do, spend all that time, 24 years in prison.
Jamerson could have gotten out sooner, but stood his ground, maintaining his innocence.
They want me to take parole, and I keep turning it down because you take parole, you can't file no lawsuit on it. That means that you take parole, that's saying that you're guilty of that crime. So I didn't mess with it.
And now that patience has paid off to the tune of $26 million. And one outstanding question: will there be any actual fallout within the agencies that led to this calamity?
I think there needs to be fallout from it. The entire detectives division at the Tulsa Police Department needs radical change.
Attorney Smolin released a statement today saying, in part, Mayor Nichols and the City Council saved Tulsa taxpayers millions. If a jury had heard how Mr. Jamerson's conviction was based on coerced testimony and how the government withheld or concealed the pertinent DNA evidence for years, the verdict would have likely been astronomical. Burt Mumolo, News Channel 8.
I frankly don't understand the damn thing these people were saying, man. I'm gonna be real. I am Trailhand Bill reporting live from South Florida, man, on a very beautiful Monday, guys. Watching the man and his dog in the park chasing ducks. Hope you had a great weekend, man, and I hope your week will be as beautiful as I hope mine will be. Oklahoma, what's up? 24 years in prison. I spend a lot of time debating AI because my mind just works on a different trajectory than most people I ever encounter, and so those confrontations get a little more contentious than it gets old, you know what I mean? So I just go back and forth with AI. And ironically, I was discussing with AI how even, I don't even want to get that deep into it. I'll just tell you what the subject was. A story circulates online about a man murdering another man because he was sleeping with his underage daughter, and immediately society begins to celebrate the man who is the murderer and then cheer that the guy who was murdered. No context, questions, or clues given. We just hear that story, and instinctually our mind thinks one man needs to be celebrated and one man deserved to lose his life in horrible fashion. I'm glad I caught this on the edit, because speaking too fast, I left out some context that I was thinking about. Like, what if the young lady in the scenario, this is an example only, looked much older than her age, like some young girls do, and had a history of lying to men about her age? What if the age gap was 19 and 17? There's just been too many stories I've seen where men get celebrated for murdering men in the defense of their loved ones. And if you would have stopped to think about it, it definitely was not called for in that regard. I'm gonna leave that there because that's just too sensitive a topic to dive deep into in this video. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying. I'm not gonna repeat that. I hope, you could take it in the way that, I said. I hope it, you can just digest it and process it the way that I said it. And then I come up on this story. Now, I knew I was going to cover this story. I got a million of them. Adam always sending them to me. Y'all see them on y'all news feeds. If you follow these type of things, I do too. I got like a million of them, literally. But I didn't know what he had falsely gone to prison for, because we hear stories of exonerations and false, not only just convictions, but incarcerations and even confessions. They said in this story, like, witness statements and confessions or whatever, I can't remember. I think they said witness statements were coerced. We hear stories like that all the time. So I didn't know what the particular crime was that he had been falsely imprisoned for. But then I hear a man accused of rape of a 16-year-old. They didn't say if it was a boy or a girl. I would almost bet every limb in my body if you told that story, and when that story was told, just like in the analogy I gave. Even though that has happened, I was just using an analogy. I bet everybody was celebrating. And again, if you tell that story right now, many people will be calling him a monster and celebrating that he was convicted, because our minds are so blind by so many things that all we have to do is hear a headline, and in our senses, it clicks that means it's automatically true. Even people who know better, all they got to do is hear a particular headline that fits their biases or soothes their egos to make them think they are the righteous people among us, and immediately, knowing that headlines can be misleading and blatantly false at times, they will still believe it's true. And unfortunately, again, I will bet every limb I got that people could hear his story today. Probably some still hear it and see that he was exonerated and think he's guilty and he's a monster. And I guarantee you, when it first happened, he was arrested. Even before he was convicted, people were running around cheering for the cops, the DA, the courts, and calling him a monster. And they were thinking that made them heroes, righteous heroes. I only heard of one hero in this story. Not even the attorneys who helped him. That's what I was laughing for in the beginning of the video. I don't know what the hell they were talking about, and hopefully I'll not forget to come back to that. But it was him. The man started in this coverage. Now, I'm sure he has a lot to say about this 24 years of his life that was stolen from him. But he started in this coverage, at least what they showed to us, saying, I don't play about my freedom. And then later on, he said, nah, they tried to let me out. They tried to free me so I could get back to living whatever life I have left by God's grace. But it was sleight of hand. And I was never going to admit to a heinous crime that I didn't commit. So I stayed falsely in prison. How many of self-righteous heroes who hear the headline about people being accused of things and automatically believe that they're guilty, how many of us would have done that? How many of us would have just simply came home? And then let's just be objectively fair here. Could we have blamed him if he would have just said, I don't know when they initially brought that proposition to him until the time he was actually freed. I'm sure they brought it more than once. Could we have really blamed him if he would have just said, man, I want to go home, man. Okay, I did it. This is the just us system that we operate in. And what I was explaining in that previous conversation that I laid out that I was having with AI, if the people inside of it, the police departments, the detectives, the DAs, the courts, the judge, et cetera, can know that they have information to prove that they were wrong and someone innocent is in prison, which also means someone violent is still walking the streets if this crime actually happened. And they can hide that evidence. If they don't give a damn, that's hard enough. What about the people who actually pretend to care and again can still hear stories like this and knowing better still assume that the headlines are true? There's just a lot of opposition there. And that's again one reason why I could say that was only one hero that I heard about in this story, and that is the man who so easily was painted as a monster who refused to give in to that label. Now to the attorney. He thinks something needs to be done here. And then he opens his mouth to tell us what he thinks that is. A lot of overhauling. Sir, based on everything we heard in this story that you were a part of, these people broke very serious laws and sent an innocent human being to prison for almost 3 decades of his life. And your response when asked what needs to happen because of that is overhaul. Not criminal charges, not incarceration, not court proceedings. Just overhaul. You're part of the problem. You're part of the enabling of this just us as system. You're one reason I live on the fringes of society, because I pray to God I never migrate with the masses who will just say what is comfortable and right at whatever and whoever's expenses. Overhaul my ass. I think everybody needs to face certain accountability in situations like this. From the people who believe the headlines just because they fit their self-righteous, egocentric beliefs, to the people who actively participate in innocent people being demonized and penalized. Accountability needs to be a universal thing until we learn to see humans how God created them and how we need to be seen. $26 million. I don't know how much he will get of that. But the only thing I heard these people in this story say correctly, even the journalists, was that none of that can give him back what was taken from him. It is so easy to hear stories like this and then just jump on the government agencies and employees who were involved, the cops, the police departments, the chiefs. It's so easy. But where do these stories fit in your morality? Do you hear that someone, even, and I'll go there now, specifically men are accused of crimes that society just sees as the worst amongst us? Do you hear that and automatically think that the man is guilty? What if that was a man you love, your husband or your son, and that was just accusations, no concrete proof? Would you still believe that? If you are a man and it was you, would you want society to simply believe it to fit their egocentric moral issues? Stories like this piss me off, not because it happened, but because it will continue to happen, and because I think of how many times it has happened, because there's a lot more monstrous morality and misguided morality in our nation and in our world than in governments. It exists in a lot of our hearts, and the fact that we would love to address it everywhere else but there, I think may be one of the biggest problems. Praise God that this man is free. My heart breaks for all of the men, women, and children who are still falsely incarcerated and looking for justice, as society and our law enforcement agencies and their partners go out of their way to keep them locked up when they know better. Again, this isn't just about taking innocent people's lives, freedoms, and all of that away from them and their families. It's also about the violent people who are still walking the streets among us. And I'm not just talking about cops. I'm also talking about the people who actually commit these crimes and are still free among us because innocent people were framed for them. And everybody who's culpable in that process. including those who believe headlines simply because the headlines fit their own personal biases. I'm Trailhand Bill. Y'all be good. Thank you if you made it this far. If you liked the video, feel free to hit that thumbs up button. I greatly appreciate it. If you care to go a little further than that, maybe even subscribe, hit the notification bell. Check out a few of the other videos on the channel. Either way, y'all be safe.